foolish mortals.
Hello there. Are you insane? Get out of here!
Remain seated with your seatbelt fastened.
Right, off you go. Welcome to Average Joe Orlando. Hello, theme park goers. Welcome to another episode of Average Joe Orlando. Today we're going to do Joe's Deep Dive. That is when I look into some history of things. This is the one I have the most homework to do. When I do a list, it's kind of just a, hey, this is what I like. When I do a review, I just kind of talk about what I'm reviewing. When I do a recap, I have to do some notes. But this one takes the most kind of research. And today we're doing Epcot's Extinct Attractions, or I should say entertainment, sorry. Because I did one on Epcot Extinct Attractions. I wanted to kind of do one on, hey, so what used to be in the park? I think I did this for now Magic Kingdom and Hollywood Studios. But when I was doing Epcot research, I was like, wow, there is a lot of entertainment they used to have that they do not have anymore. And it felt like it had to be its own episode because there was so much that I learned and so much that I found and a lot of things that I cannot pronounce. So this should be interesting going through this list because as I'm rereading it over from my notes, I'm like, we're going to sound this out and do our best. So maybe we'll just dive right in and start talking about what's in there and what do we miss and what do we remember and what have we never heard of, which is a lot of it. There is a lot of live music and entertainment. We'll start with that first, and then we'll kind of go into the different celebrations they used to have and different things they used to have in the park, which are less extinct and more of just those who are on times. Parades, rest in peace. Daytime shows, which is very random that they had that, but I guess they tried to make it work. And then also fireworks shows, which I think I'll get a little bitter party of one as we discuss that. But we'll go right into the music and entertainment, start working our way around the world. Working our way. Come on, Joe, enunciate. So there was one in Norway. I don't have much details on the timeline, but they used to have a Norwegian folk music that I can't even pronounce, so I'm not even going to try to do it because it'll just come out really terrible and sounds not good. So there was a Norwegian folk music show in Norway, and I wish they had that too. I know a lot of the shows they bring like during Christmas, different things, or the holidays. But yeah, Norwegian had a whole folk music section. I'm still bitter about them getting rid of Maelstrom. So if we really want to get into Norway, that could take a whole episode about my bitterness about that, because Frozen and Maelstrom could have lived together harmoniously. See what I did there? Over in China, they did have a traditional Chinese music player that did authentic instruments. They did have the Chinese acrobats called the Dragon Legend Acrobats, and they also had one called the Jeweled Dragon Acrobats, and I believe they have a troupe that comes in now also that is only during special events or times. In Italy, they had Luigi, a mime, comedian, magician, and street performer. They also had an electronic classical music group called Ronaldo, I should be able to say this last name. They had another one. And then they also had an electronic classical music group called Nova Era, which apparently now is at Disney Springs sometimes. And then I remember this one, finally something I remember on this list. I guess they had a name. I didn't realize it, but it's called the Imaginarium A Statue Act. And that was the living statue. And I remember that back in the day, them having that statue and people would take pictures with the statue and it would kind of come alive. I remember they did have one at SeaWorld for Hollow Scream 2 years ago, I want to say. And the shark bar turned into that, and they would like move. And I believe they also had one that shot water out of its finger, which was cool, somewhere at SeaWorld. So I'm assuming maybe this Living Statue Act is like a third-party group. And if you don't know what third party is essentially how Disney refers to ones that don't work for the company. They hire an outside company that they bring in. I don't know why they don't call it a second party, because you have your first party would be it was the third party group that would come in and do these different kinds of acts. And Universal hires them a lot, a third party company to do different performances or different entertainment. And Disney from time to time, and SeaWorld definitely does also. And a lot of them will duplicate too, which is really fun. So you might notice sometimes performers from maybe SeaWorld, you might see the same performers over at Disney, and you might notice them also at Universal at different times. And I know a lot of even friends of mine that work at all the different parks, either at a third party or just internally. But anyway, this Living Statue Act, I wonder if it is part of that same one. But I remember them having the living statues in Italy. Finally, one I remember. Another one I remember that I can't believe that they got rid of was over at the American Adventure, the Spirit of America Fife and Drum Corps. Now, this was, I remember very Colonial Williamsburg. So if you've ever been to Colonial Williamsburg, that was this kind of vibe in there. And this was the fife and drums that would go around the area over in I guess that area that would march. It is a small area when you think about it, though. And I don't know how they really did it because I never saw it in person. I just remember always, and on those Disney vacation planning videos, they would have the fife and drum go through. There's also one called the American Vibe, a contemporary a cappella group forming American R&B, jazz, and swing. I don't remember that one. The only one I do always remember would be the American. Oh my gosh, what is their name? The one that performs inside. You know who I'm talking about. And they're like really good. They better not ever get rid of them though. Voices of Liberty. Come on, Joe. Get with it. Yes, they're the one inside. And I know they love cutting budget and cutting entertainment, but don't get rid of them. That is a showpiece. Sometimes they're on the main stage, Voice of Liberty. Sometimes they're inside. And fun fact, if you go inside, they do say where they sing inside the round rotunda area inside is the best part for their acoustics. So if you stand in the same area, it's more of a, you kind of stand or you sit on the ground or they have a few benches. The acoustics in there are really cool. But yeah, they are still there. Knock on wood, forever. In Japan, I remember this one, they had a candy artist, and I remember going there, before I moved to Florida, so before 2010, and they had the candy artist over in Japan. And I did recently see a candy artist that did something similar to this in Disneyland. I was there during their Lunar New Year, and they had a candy artist, which is cool. It reminded me of this, so full circle. In Morocco, they did have traditional Moroccan music and dance inside the restaurant Marrakesh. This closed during COVID, and then it never reopened. It reopened a little bit as like an annual pass holder lounge, and then I think they opened it not as a DVC lounge, like some other lounge, and then just never reopened for some reason. But they did have music and a dancer inside. They still have their music and dancer outside on the front part of Morocco. This is hidden in the back. If you ever kind of venture through the area, it's pretty cool because it is pretty quiet back there and it's really detailed. But there is a closed restaurant back there that who knows what they're doing with it. But hopefully they will do something back there. Over at the United Kingdom, they had a few different ones that I definitely remember. So I remember the British Invasion. That was the 60s British rock and roll. They called it a revival. It was basically like the Beatles. And then they had the Hat Lady. That was the pianist inside the Rose and Crown pub. I remember her, and then we'd always take a picture with her. Definitely remember going there. I sometimes don't remember going there, but the Hat Lady was there for a long time. And then I think they moved the Hat Lady for a little bit to the stage out in the back, kind of like where the Winnie the Pooh area is. And then for some reason, they don't have her anymore. However, I have seen her appear on like YouTube every once in a while. One of the Hat Ladies, I guess she does like YouTube Live. I think she started that during the pandemic and still does. I hope she's well. I hope she's still around. And then I guess there was the magician that appeared in Rose and Crown Pub. I don't have much more information about this, but also a magician. Now you can't even walk inside Rose and Crown Pub, and then usually it's very loud, and usually people are like kind of obnoxious in there too, and very not Disney-esque. So I guess that's why they don't have entertainment in there. Canada, on the stage, they had the show Off Kilter. That was a Celtic and Canadian rock band. I remember this one. I remember when they weren't there anymore, being really upset. I remember always seeing them play, and then my dad would get excited, go over to take a seat, and then they'd say, "This is our last song," and we'd be like, "Oh." So for some reason, we only would see their last song. Never could time that out right. I did that a lot with shows, where you walk up and you're like, "Oh, this looks great," and they're like, "Thank you all for coming," and you're like, "Never mind." Just me? Let's talk about the celebrations over at Epcot. Now, they did have some ones that I remember, some ones that I don't. The first one was, of course, the Millennium Celebration that took place on, shockingly, 1999 to 2000. So they had a few things for the Millennium Celebration. I remember really wanting to come down. I was young, and I was like, I want to go for the Millennium Celebration. My parents were like, no, we can't afford it. We are not going to Disney this year. We actually ended up going the following year, though. Right before 9/11, we went. And then apparently, I guess it wasn't as busy after that. But yeah, we didn't get to go for the Millennium Celebration. But they did have the Mickey Mouse wand over Spaceship Earth that held the year 2000 text on there. And then when I went in 2001, they changed the wand, and I have a family photo. Oh, right next to me here. Oh, I can see it now. And it said Epcot, and they had that on the Spaceship Earth from 99 to the year 2007. They finally took the wand down. I remember thinking it was cool. Apparently, a lot of people didn't like it because it took away from it. Now they have the lights on the ball, which is great. But Spaceship Earth did have the wand for the Millennium Celebration. They also apparently rethemed the area in front of the Fountain of Nations, rest in peace, to the Millennium Central area, which included the pin area. I remember the old fountain. I don't know why they got rid of it, because now it's so boring. Then they changed up Illuminations to Illuminations 2000's Reflections of Earth, and that was a new fireworks show they had. And then after that, it was just Illuminations Reflections of Earth, which still should be today. I'm going to be very bitter about how Illuminations could have just been reworked a little bit with a new tag or something. We didn't need to get rid of it. There was a Tapestry of Nations, which was a parade about unity and the world peace, featuring large puppets that went from 99 to 2001. And they actually had the Millennium Village, which was like that large building back there. Sorry, I should go more on there. So there's Tapestry of Nations, and then after that, there was actually Tapestry of Dreams. So that kind of ties in, so I should jump in back and forth. But this was a parade that went through the different countries, and they walked around. Crazy to think that they had a parade. I'm sure for crowd control was a complete nightmare. And nowadays, you see how busy it is in the countries, and there's no way they can get a parade through. But the Tapestry of Nations, and then later Tapestry of Dreams, that was a refurbished one, replacing like the Stage of Time. And it was a little bit changed up, but kind of the same thing for those. So only a few years, 99 to 2002, to have those two parades. When they brought over Epcot Forever fireworks temporarily in between the fireworks shows at Epcot, they had this in there too, along with Put Your Hand on the Future and the Tapestry of Dreams, Tapestry of Nations music. This was like classic Epcot. Like this was peak to me. It's not peak now, but it was peak then. Millennium Village. Now, this was a large building with smaller attractions to represent other countries that aren't in World Showcase. That was open from 99 to 2000. That tent is still there. So if you've been to different events or festivals at Disney, they sometimes have it. It's in between Canada and the UK. It's large back there. I think that's where the Mary Poppins ride was going to go, in that area. And then obviously they canceled it, or as they say, postponed it. We ain't getting it. Come on. That's where the Millennium Village was housed. There was also the 25th anniversary, which was a celebration they did, and that was October 1st, 2007, and they did a rededication of the park, and then they had special Illuminations Reflections of Earth, classic Epcot songs, so they did a whole thing over there. Then they did part of the 50th, they did an Epcot, they themed it to the world's most magical celebration. And then very short, which I don't know what the deal was with this, but they did Disney's 100 Years of Wonder in 2023. I don't really feel like they did much. They consider it part of the celebrations, but if you have a banner and a cupcake, is it really a celebration? See? Better. As I mentioned earlier, the parades, they only had two over at Epcot, but they had the Tapestry of Nations in 99, and then in Tapestry of Dreams in 2001, which finally closed, unfortunately, in 2003. And then for shows, it seemed like they tried in the early days of the park to kind of do daytime shows, since they had the giant lagoon. So from 85 to 87, they had a show with planes called Kaleidoscope. That's a tough word. Kaleidoscope, where they had planes overhead. And then they did Surprise in the Skies from 91 to 92. Not much is known about these. But very cool that they had kind of a plane air show over that area. Kind of change it up. And then in the American Adventure, in the American Gardens Theater, they had The Magical World of Barbie. I feel like they could bring that back now and people would be interested. But that only ran from 94 to 95. I remember seeing that on those old VHS tapes that you would send away. I don't know about anybody else. Maybe I'm dating myself, but I would always send away every year. Be like, can we get one? And you'd order it for free. It would come in the mail and you'd watch it. And my parents would always be like, you could watch it, but we're not going this year. And I would be like, okay. And I would always just watch those videos. Then they went to DVDs. Then they went to a streaming video that you could download. And now I guess you just watch YouTube videos. I don't know. I miss the old videos because they were just so like cheesy and fun and would show everything. I always was like, what? How do they interview those kids? I want to be in one of these videos. And yeah, I always really liked those. I don't know what they do. And then they had Stacy. Remember Stacy in the? I'm really going down memory lane today. When you check into the hotel and Stacy's favorite things to do. I wonder what Stacy's doing now. Hope she's doing well. But yeah, then they kind of got rid of her too. What the heck? Come on, bring Stacy back. But we'll wrap it up also with the fireworks shows. So there were a lot of fireworks shows, which when I was doing this research, I didn't realize how many fireworks shows Epcot has been through. Because when you think about the other parks, it really hasn't been as many. So let's start with the first one. So October 23rd, 1982, there was Carnaval de Lumiere. And then in 1983, a New World of Fantasy came. And these were all in the lagoon over at World Showcase. Then there was Laser Phonic Fantasy, and that ran from June of 84 to January of 88, so a little bit longer. And then there was Illuminations. We remember that. And that actually started January 30th, 1988. And the regular first Illuminations ran through September 96. Then they also did a seasonal holiday Illuminations, which I don't know why we can't bring that back. But they did holiday Illuminations, and they ran that seasonally from 94 through 98. And then they did Illuminations 25, and that ran from 96 to 97, September 96 to May 97. And then they did a different version of it, Illuminations 25 from May 97 through January 98. So that's kind of cool if they changed it up. Then they ran Illuminations 98, so clearly now it's the year. And this ran from February 1998 to September 1999. And then Illuminations, the one that most of us probably remember, Illuminations Reflections of Earth. And that ran from October 99 to September 2019. And then they also did a short one of Illuminations 2000's Reflection of Earth, and that was created for the Millennium Celebrations that ended in September of 19. But they kind of did all these different versions of Illuminations, which is great, until it finally ended, and they were like, we're going to do a new show, and then they ended up just doing Epcot Forever. Epcot Forever is a weird one. Either you loved it or you hated it. I remember seeing it with two of my friends from home that came down to visit at the same time, and one of them grew up like a Disney freak, loved everything Disney, and then the other one grew up knowing Disney, not as well. And the one that grew up like hardcore Disney was crying, knew all the music in it, Veggie Fruit, It's Fun to Be Free, all that stuff. The other one goes, what is all this music? I know none of this. And I was like, these are the old attractions for Epcot. This is a tribute to the old Epcot. So it's a very mixed review one. Either you loved it or you hated it. I personally loved it. They first had it for a short time, and the first time that Epcot Forever ran, they did it with the jet skis, which were really cool. And it was neat because the jet skis had the kites on it, and that ran from October 1st, 2019 through March 13th, 2020. And then they brought it back again July 1st through September 28th, and then they brought it back again April 3rd through December 4th, 2023. So it's kind of that weird filler show that came in between other shows where it was like, oh, we're going to throw in Epcot Forever. Oh, we're going to throw in this one. They did Harmonious from October 1st, 2021 to April 2nd, 2023. People loved it or they hated it. It wasn't bad. It just was a little too much. The barges were enormous for Harmonious, and they really blocked all the sightlines because they didn't bring them in, bring them out. This was definitely during those weird Chapek years where he came in for a little bit, and we just blame him for anything that was bad during that time. I don't know if it was his fault or not, but I'll jump on that bandwagon. So they didn't bring in and out the barges. It blocked everything. A lot of the arms on it didn't really work as well. This was the time where Disney was like, oh, let's try to get away from more fireworks and do more projections. And the fun part about the other shows where it was more fireworks because you could see it from everywhere. And this one you had to be close to see it. It was also a bit of a hodgepodge. There wasn't much of a storyline. There was a lot of just Disney songs thrown in randomly. So it was fine. They replaced it with the new show, Luminous. Yes. I have to say, I find it kind of boring myself. Maybe you like it. Sorry if you do, but I'm going to be for Illuminations Forever. Oh my gosh, just bring Illuminations and call it Illuminations Forever. Okay, I just solved that. You're welcome, Disney. It's very interesting to see how things have changed. Obviously, it depends on the executives and the creatives behind it. And I understand right now, Disney's new focus is less originals and more just throwing those intellectual properties. So throw, Frozen and Ratatouille and The Incredibles or Moana. And while I think that's great, but I think there's also a time and place for that. And I think sometimes those make things dated really quickly when you have something like Haunted Mansion and Pirates and Jungle Cruise that are more timeless. In 20 years, are we really going to care about Moana walkway or a Guardians roller coaster? Will it stand the test of time? I guess only time will tell. And I think that's what also made Illuminations stay around from 1988 to on and off until 2019, was that it was really not a dated show. There wasn't this presence of Disney music that you're like, oh yeah, this song, I remember that movie. The originals kind of, they stand a little bit more in the test of time. So it'll be very interesting to see what direction Epcot goes in. Obviously, there are probably things that I missed on this list during my research. There's probably a lot more detail to a lot of these. But I think there's also a lot of things that have come and gone recently through the different holidays, through the different events. And I think this list will just keep growing, unfortunately, with things that will be extinct as they keep making way for new things. I know there's a new show in the center with like the globe where like the acrobats spin. I don't know what that has to do with Epcot, but that's cool. There's the Encanto show, which was supposed to be a short run show, which now has continued. So curious to see like what, if anything, replaces that and what they use that for, since that is a big outdoor area. And Luminous, I think it still gets mixed reviews. So obviously they spent a lot of money on these past 3 shows. So I have a feeling we'll have that for a while, but I'm sure eventually that will not be here for 20-something years. But really, who knows? Very interesting to see what they do. Same thing. If you look at Magic Kingdom, they got rid of the 50th anniversary show and replaced it with what was before it, which I think they should have done here. But it'll be interesting to see how this grows. I still have more of these to do for the extinct attractions. If there's not as long of a list as this one, I'll combine it, the attractions with entertainment, like I did for the Hollywood Studios one. Still have to do my Animal Kingdom deep dive, and then I want to start looking at the other parks too, learning more about what used to be at Disneyland. I'm sure that'll be a long list. In California Adventure, another very long list. And as you venture outside the other parks to kind of see, I know I got to go to Disneyland Paris before they revived it, and a lot of those shows don't exist anymore. In my mind, they were fantastic. If I look them up on YouTube, I'm sure they didn't age well, like most things, but it's always fun to look back and see what was and kind of sometimes live in what it used to be. I think that's a little bit more fun, because when you go back, and I don't know if anybody else watches like those old Nickelodeon shows on Paramount Plus, and I'm like, oh, Hey Dude was my favorite, and I turned it on, I was like, this is rough. Maybe it's better that we live in our head that The Magical World of Barbie 94 was great. Maybe it was. But now things don't age as well. But anyway, that is my recap of Epcot Extinct Attractions. Hopefully you learned something new. I know I learned a lot. I didn't realize how much used to be there, but then also went down memory lane a bit. But anyway, with that, I will see you at the parks.
Thanks for taking a ride with Average Joe Orlando.
You made it! I knew you would.
Is everyone okay? Hope you still want to open an account.
Say cheese. See you later.
Thanks, everybody. You were brilliant.
At this time, gather up your personal belongings and take your small grubs by their grubby little hands as you exit. Thank you.